Welcome back to day 20 of my perfectly imperfect, beautiful life. And today I want to talk about evolving friendships. So I wanted to begin with a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in honor of his holiday. And the quote, and I want to apply it to this context, is "We must live as sisters and brothers or we will perish together as fools." And I wanted to talk about friendship specifically because this year, probably the last couple of years, I have really gone through a shift in friendships. And if you know anything about me, I'm a very introverted person. So I keep a lot to myself. I love my alone time, and so I have been working on putting myself out there more. But I have this hub of friends who I absolutely adore. I don't just look at them as friends, they are my sisters. And there has been a shift in some of the friendships. And so I literally saw myself with this, with specific people, like we would be friends until the day that we died. And in my heart, I still believe this, but I do have an understanding that we grow, and as we grow, we change, and I wouldn't even say for the better or for the worse. We just change. We have different experiences. These experiences can go all the way back to our childhood. We move, we form different relationships with other people, our jobs, just all kind of experiences happen, and it challenges us to grow. And in that growth, when you have relationships with other people, those situations can grow. And sometimes you grow together, and other times you grow apart. And that has been very challenging for me because the growing apart part is something that I never thought would happen. And I guess I am one of those people who, even if you don't talk like 6 months to a year, and I know that might sound crazy for some, but I feel like you catch up and you snap right back. Like I grew up in a family, and as disruptive as it may seem to some, but I grew up in a family where people can knock down, drag out, fight, and then 2 hours later or a day later, they're like, "You want to go to lunch?" Or, you got on my nerves, or whatever, but they fall right back into place. And so when friendships don't work that way, for me, it is really hard because that's not how I grew up. And I understand that everybody doesn't grow up that way. And that might not even be healthy for my own family because oftentimes maybe in that conversation should have been had instead of just going to a lunch, And so maybe sometimes like the heavy things aren't dealt with. And in friendships, it might just be the opposite where, you're forced to deal with situations or a reflection of yourself that you may not want to face, and it may cause disruption. And so for me, when friendships evolve and when they evolve in a negative way, I really, really mourn the friendship, like as if somebody died. It's just hard for me because I guess because of that snapback part of me, it's hard for me to just think about the fact that it may end and that, everything has its season. And I know I've heard this like my whole entire life, but there's certain friendships that I didn't think had a season. I thought it was like a lifetime thing. And so for it to have actually applied to me has been really, really difficult. There's friendships, that I've had since elementary school and middle school and high school. And like, these are people that I just thought this was like a forever thing. And, some of those have abruptly ended. And so, and maybe it wasn't abrupt. Maybe it's just been a break or a long pause. But it's just really difficult. But even in that difficult time period, I know I often say love and light, but I do still wish love and light. Like, because of my love for those particular people, even in those times, I guess it makes me want to love them harder. I'm not one of those people where when others are like, forget her, forget him. I don't feel that way. I feel like I want to love them harder. I don't necessarily feel like I have to go rushing after them, because I do feel like sometimes we have to deal with our own situations and our own in its own way. But I don't feel like I have to love the person any less. I feel like love the person harder, like still pray for them regardless. Like, you don't just pray for people when things are good. You pray for them, people, just because, you always wish them love and light. You always wish them happiness. You always wish them joy. So, and even in that too, like, if I'm asked about the person, I'm like, they're doing well. I don't know, but just negative things. Because if we were friends before, if I am to call this person my sister or brother, that doesn't mean it ever has to stop. So, I guess I don't know if I just necessarily had a particular point. I guess I kind of just wanted to get out of my chest about how when friendships evolve, it's difficult. And again, I know there are some people who they're okay with it just fading and just going away, but that's just not who I am. And so for those of you who do end negatively, my suggestion is to not lower yourself enough. Another Martin Luther King quote: don't lower yourself enough to hate a person. Like, what does it do? What kind of energy, like, if you think selfishly about yourself, then what kind of energy are you putting in your body when you hate somebody? But just thinking in general, what is that doing? Like, there was a time that you absolutely loved and adored this person. You can still do that. You don't necessarily have to have an everyday relationship with the person. You can still see them. It doesn't have to be, this dramatic situation. Speak, nod your head, give a hug, smile. Your friendship has just evolved. It doesn't have to be a negative situation, and you can still wish them love and light. You can still wish success on them. You can still wish it for them and their family. You just don't necessarily have to have a relationship. And who knows, it could still come full circle as well, Sometimes people just have to take a pause so they can grow alone. Does it make it a bad thing? Does it make either person bad, even though the situation there might have been some type of discord, but it doesn't have to be a bad situation. I have had that happen before, where there was a time where I didn't talk to a person for a year or two, because of an argument or a disagreement. But we came back, we were able to talk things out, and we're closer than ever. So friendships can evolve. Doesn't mean that it necessarily has to feel good. And different situations cause friendships to evolve, and sometimes we have to accept that even if we don't want to accept it. But that doesn't mean that we have to hurt or not love the person. All right. Love you. See you guys for day 21. All right. Thank you for following me this far. Bye.